Hello everybody and welcome to the preview of PowerBuilder 2018. I'm Govinda Lopez and I have been a PowerBuilder developer for all my life. So, as you can imagine, I love PowerBuilder. I love its simplicity, I love that it's so easy to learn, to keep, and to maintain. I love its data windows, its embedded SQL, its CC dot notation, and so many other things. I've been doing this for so long now that any other language could seem unnecessarily complex and even difficult. But then one day I was told, hey Govinda, we're now also doing C#. So my first impression was, how's that ever going to be as easy as PV? How can it be as simple as using PowerScript? But then I got surprised, because as a matter of fact, turns out that Appeon has brought the simplicity of PowerBuilder to the C# world. Here, let me show you why. First of all, we've added two new targets, the C# Web API and the C# assembly. With them, you can now migrate your existing business logic to the cloud. We can now create RESTful web APIs and publish them on IIS. So, let's start by creating a new one. I'll now change the name of this project. Then click OK. You'll notice that PowerBuilder has created a solution and a project with some basic objects in it. And we've also added a new C# editor window directly to the IDE. You'll also notice that IntelliSense is also there. Better yet is that PowerBuilder's data store has been directly migrated to C#. So creating your data windows in C# is as easy as creating a data window in PowerBuilder with a data window designer. C# data stores have the same properties, events, and functions as PowerBuilder. So there is no need to learning a new IDE. Now let's say I wanted to migrate my existing data windows. I would then go to the target, library, or object, right-click on it, and then click on Generate C# Models. And here you have it. Your data windows have been migrated to C#. Now, let's take a look at the code. So I'll open up an example I prepared for you. I'll start by looking into how to do a simple retrieve to this data store. But hey, let's take a look at how this is done in PowerScript. First, we start by declaring a data store variable. Then we create it, assign the data object that was automatically migrated by PowerBuilder, and assign its transaction object or data context in C#. Then we do the retrieve and return the data object. But now let's try adding a row before returning the data store.
Oh, it seems that I missed a variable. Now that I have inserted a row, let's go ahead and add the values to the row. So I'll use the set item, put the row number, indicate the name of the column, put the value, there we go. Let's do the same thing for the rest of the values. So as you can see, IntelliSense is also helping me here. Now let's go ahead and do something a little bit more complicated. Let's go ahead and filter out the rows. So we'll call our data store, set the filter value, right over here, and then again call the data store and just filter it out. Okay, how about we also do a sort to this data store? Oops, sorry. Sort the data store. So now we call the data store, set the sort, and then finally sort it out. And as you can see, this is basically the same as PowerScript. Okay, seems I'm missing something over here. Let's put it over here. There we go. So as you can see, PowerBuilder has now brought the data store directly to C# the easy way. Now for those of you who would like to be more Visual Studio savvy or comfortable, we've also created a new C# IDE. And as you can see, this IDE is more lightweight and even faster. This will be also included with the cloud edition of PowerBuilder. So let's take a look into our API. Remember how I showed you the data store for C#? Well, we've also created a new object called the model store. This one has no dependency on PowerBuilder IDE, but it can even be used interchangeably with the data store. It's basically got the same properties, events, functions as the data store, but can also be used independently from the data objects and PowerBuilder IDE. And since it has no dependency on PowerBuilder IDE, you can even develop it using Visual Studio, C# IDE from PowerBuilder, or even Notepad. And the benefit of using the model store against the data store is it features an increased performance, and that I don't actually need PowerBuilder IDE to continue developing it. So even C# developers that are not acquainted to PowerBuilder can continue developing with the model store. Because by using the SQL annotation directly into the model store model, we make things a lot easier for everybody. Please notice how the SQL parameters are stated right here. The tables I will be using for this are also right here. The SQL where, and even the order by. This basically makes C# code to be more of a port effort rather than a rewrite effort. So making it easier for everybody to not only create new web APIs, but also migrate your existing business logic to the cloud. And it's all easy as the PowerBuilder way. But hey, why don't we just go ahead and take a look at it? So let's go ahead and look at the source code of one of its services. And I'll go ahead and open the service for one of the model stores. And let's just scroll a little bit down. First of all, I'm going to close this. And yeah, just scroll down a little bit. And here we are. First of all, I create a variable. Then create the model store from the variable, passing in the model it will be using. We'll do the retrieve, setting it SQL CA, arguments, then just return the model store. There we go. Notice how actually it was very similar to the data store. Well, with the only fact that I had to pass on its data context or SQL CA if you want, but everything else is very similar. So migrating your data windows, your current business logic to the web API is very simple. Now for those of you that are already using C#, we've got some great news for you. We've also got a new object named the ModelMapper. Now the ModelMapper is basically a new object for C# web APIs and C# assemblies. It features better performance than model store and data store, and it's quite simple to use. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. Now let me open right over here the model for you. Here we are. There you go. So we got the ModelMapper right over here. Now as you'll notice, we've got also the SQL notation right on the model. We got the table, and we also got the schema for this table and the SQL order by. Now this is a very simple model, but the fact is that you can have and use the SQL builder along with the SQL executor, which are new objects as well. Now let's take a deeper look into this, shall we? As you can see, the first section is the SQL annotation. Then beneath that, we will be declaring the class or the model itself. As you'll notice that it's also calling the table alias. Basically getting all the columns that I require. Now for those of you that are familiar with Entity Framework, you'll notice that Entity Framework is a little bit different. You have to put the model, as this example right here, and then opposite to ModelMapper and other frameworks, what you need to do now is on your service for the entity framework, you need to declare the SQL query that it would be using. As you can see right over here, if we do that, then we might get very complex queries. And this is just a simple report. So you'll see that I'm declaring a variable that's going to be holding the query inside of it and making things a little bit more difficult to upgrade, to manage. If you need to make any change, then you will need to change many things over here, making sure that everything works properly. And then finally, you will need to return this as a list. Now that's the usual way you would do this with Entity Framework. But then if we go to ModelMapper, you'll notice how it is very simple to do this. So let's go to the retrieve method. That's something similar to what we did before, but in this case for the ModelMapper. So I'll get the context variable, call its ModelMapper object, and then its load function, passing along the model I want to load and returning everything as a list. So that's it. I've already done everything in just one line of code. If you remember, I told you about the SQL Builder and SQL Executor. Well, these are some of the great new stuff about it as well. Since SQL Executor is basically a copy-paste from your SQL code you already use on PowerBuilder. And let's take this for example. I can just select it, and you'll notice how this is a basic SQL query I got from my SQL manager. And let's just, why not, let's take a look at it. So I'll be copying it, and let me open the SQL Server Management Studio. Let's just give it a couple of seconds for this to load and charge. And here we are. So let's just connect to this, and now I'm opening the database that I was using before. Let's do a new query and just paste the result over here. It's basically the same one I have over there, and now execute it. You'll see it's returning the desired results that should be returning on my C# code. So this is basically doing a port effort rather than having to rewrite everything and making my life a lot easier. Look, right over here, it's basically the same code, the one I used on my PowerBuilder application. So this is easily done with the SQL Executor. Now, as you can see over here, I'm also doing a save changes to the ModelMapper, which is basically the same thing as the update I do with the data store. But it's a lot easier to do with the ModelMapper because it's also oriented to transactions. So I don't have to be developing everything to make sure that it's doing a right commit and a rollback in either case. I just have to do the save changes, and that's it. ModelMapper would manage everything else for me. But hey, I got a better idea. How about if we just go ahead and take a look at this? Maybe it's going to be a lot easier to understand and comprehend if we look into a real example. So I'm going to be opening it over here, and let me look for it. While I do so, please let me remind you that all these examples will be posted on the website appeon.com for you to also download and take a look at it and, well, do your testing as well. Now I'm scrolling down to some methods, and here we are. As you can see, we have a track master, so we can have a relationship of master detail on the model mappers. And right here I'm telling it to first track the changes on the master and on the detail, and only after that do and save the changes, finally to return the ID of the saved row. Now, as you can also see, I have also another one here saying save changes with items, which I send a model of the sales order type for the ModelMapper. And its second argument would be another model, the sales order items, and that's the way we'll also be doing is calling the context, then going to the ModelMapper object and doing the track master with the sales order would be the master, then track the details where sales order items would be the details, save the changes, and finally return the affected amount of rows or the affected count. So as you can see, it's straightforward, easy, simple. Everything is done right here because any changes, any commit or rollback is done automatically by ModelMapper itself. Now, I also know that there might be some of you that might be wondering, well, if this is supposed to be so easy, well, why do I have to create all the objects by myself? Why do I have to type everything by myself? Well, good news is that with a new C# editor, you won't have to do that. Well, we will be doing a new migration wizard, and also you will have your wizard for creating all your new scaffolded items. So let's take a look at that. If I go to add and then click over here, new scaffolded item. So let me just click on this right over here. And as you can see, we have the service for the model store and service for the ModelMapper. So I'm going to be clicking over here on model store. Click OK, and then I can save this name or just change it. So let's go ahead and change it. Let's say PV Model Store Service, and the controller would be created. The data context is already chosen. Click OK, and please do notice that my service has already been created, my implement has already been created, also the model and the controller. Everything with just a simple click of a button. Now, it seems that I said implement, but I meant interface has already been created. And here you can see the service. It's a simple service. This is just a demo so that we can take a look into what this is done. But as you can see, it's getting the update, the get, the delete, and we've also got the model itself right over here, and we've also got the controller. Everything simple, fast, easy. Here we are, getting the ID, getting with the post method, with the delete. Now, for those of you that are worried that PowerBuilder is disappearing, well, I've got some very good news for you, because as a matter of fact, this is not the case. We're actually improving PowerBuilder, and PowerBuilder is here to stay for the long run. So let me show you a new enhancement we've also added to PowerBuilder. Besides all this C# stuff, we've also improved the user interface for PowerBuilder. So as you'll notice, this is one of them, but let me just go ahead and change it to a demo I set already prepared for you. So I'm starting this, and here we go. As you can see, we've added the new feature of the user interface. It is now based on themes. I can manage all those themes. They are customizable. I can change them to whatever I want. Please take a look at how the back color of the data windows have changed. Even the radio buttons have changed. And I can customize all this by myself. So it's very simple. I don't have to go through many different huge steps or even maybe different tools to make this happen. And notice how even these lines are customizable. the back color of each one of the columns and fields are customizable as well. I can change the checkboxes, the buttons, even the single line edits. And here, let me show you something else, how easy it is to customize this by yourself. So please notice these letters, how they are black. And I'll just run this report a little bit. You'll also notice how we've managed new colors for this reportings as well, with richer content and as well as better performance. And let me just take a look into the settings for this. And okay, so let's look at this again, and here we are. So as you saw, I've already changed the theme right here, and let's take a look into how to change the theme a lot easier and faster. So I'm just going to be opening this because this is managed by a JSON file, something very similar to the CSS, but it's managed with JSON. So it's right over here. I'm changing the text font color of the checkboxes. So I'm saving this. I just need to close it and then go back to my application, run the application, and take a look at the letters, how they have already changed to red. It's that simple. You can make the changes to your themes, create new themes, copy the ones we already have, create your new ones, and everything is done with the same IDE. So we can just change the themes, create new ones, share them, copy them, and so forth. And well, this is one part of the new enhancements we'll be doing to the user interface, because we will also be adding new objects, for example the ribbon controls and also the tabbed windows. So I hope you enjoyed our preview of PowerBuilder 2018. Remember, it's going to be released by the end of December this year, and we hope you enjoy it as much as I have been doing it so far. And I'll be seeing you here. Please stay tuned and wait for our demos that we will be publishing, our videos and everything that's going to be online. And also don't forget to visit our community at community.appeon.com. Thanks again.